with the reveal of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel, a lot of us Zelda fans the world over got really excited that we're gonna go back to a familiar Hyrule, and the fact that Zelda 20 actually did turn out to be The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, a sequel to a very familiar and fresh take on the Legend of Zelda series that a lot of new players have enjoyed, along with seasoned veterans of the Zelda franchise. And with the original Breath of the Wild breaking traditions and conventions known in the Zelda series, and the fact that we're getting another one, what's to say that we will not get another breaking of tradition, another breaking of conventions, in terms of another Legend of Zelda game that is tied to the Breath of the Wild series. That's right, I said series when it comes to one game. Hey everyone, it's HMK, and as always, strap on in. This video is gonna be wild. 3 times the wild of Breath of the Wild. Now, the Zelda series isn't new to the concept of sequels in their games. We've had Zelda 2, which is a sequel to the original Legend of Zelda. We've had Majora's Mask, which is a sequel to Ocarina of Time. We've had Link's Awakening, which is a sequel to A Link to the Past. Phantom Hourglass to Wind Waker, etc, etc. However, with the sequel, the incoming sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, this is as much as a sequel can get in terms of the Zelda series and in terms of a video game. We're going back to the same Hyrule, we're featuring the same Link and Zelda, the same art style, the same engine. We are literally continuing Link and Zelda's story within this familiar Hyrule in the sequel. And I feel that's a gigantic deal given my previous point that this is as much a sequel can get in terms of a Zelda game when considering and comparing past Zelda sequels. With that being said, there are some funny thoughts and ideas that I was slinging around with my viewers over on a Twitch stream that I really want to convey in a video when concerning a trilogy that could be based on The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. While this is mostly just fun ideas, I do feel I have a very convincing thought process by the end of this video that could in turn get you on the boat for a potential trilogy based on The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I mean, hey, the first game, and more than likely the second game, is going to be known for breaking conventions previously thought unbreakable in the Zelda series, so I feel this is another one that could be shattered. The idea I had is that The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 could be left off and end on a very dark and a very grim cliffhanger that will set up the events for the third game in the series. And you know, since we're dealing with what seems to be a very substantial amount of darkness according to Nintendo, as this game will be a bit darker than Majora's Mask, which a lot of people do consider to be the darkest game in the series. But considering the amount of darkness we're going to be dealing with this game, I have another video in line for that. Now bear with me, here's what I think what could go down possibly at the end of the game, just one of the outcomes on how we can get a Breath of the Wild 3. So imagine Link facing off against a rejuvenated Ganondorf. He's got the Master Sword, he's got that weird energy arm ready, and I want to go ahead and assume that Zelda will be there, and once again it's going to be a familiar battle with all 3 pieces of the Triforce in attendance. The Triforce of Courage with Link, the Triforce of Wisdom with Zelda, and of course, the Triforce of Power with Ganondorf. How will we get to this point as a player, and how will the story get to this? Well, I'm just, trying to speculate an ending here. Okay, so the battle plays out, and it's gonna be a lot better than the Calamity Ganon and the Dark Beast Ganon that we got in Breath of the Wild 1. And Link will defeat him, but you can't see me, but I'm making quotation marks around the defeats. Because once you complete the Ganondorf boss fight, the final Ganondorf, I don't know how many times you're gonna have to fight against him, a cutscene will play, where Link tries to go for the final blow against Ganondorf, using the Master Sword. But once he strikes him, it turns out the Master Sword no longer has the ability to kill him for whatever reason. And we've seen this before in The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker. When Link first tries to strike him down at the Forsaken Fortress, it doesn't work. I'm sure Nintendo and the team will find a spin on why the Master Sword wouldn't work on Ganondorf this time around. Maybe too much time has passed. Maybe the malice that seeped within the Master Sword gave Ganondorf an edge. Maybe the combination of all of this malice that Ganondorf stockpiled with the Triforce of Power was just a little too much for the Master Sword this time. Either way, I have a huge theory on that coming out very soon after this video. So when Link realizes that the Master Sword no longer has the ability to stop Ganondorf, Ganondorf breaks it and uses it to cut off Link's sword-wielding arm. You know that arm where the Triforce is supposed to be and where the energy went into? Yeah, that's gonna be gone. And no, there doesn't have to be blood or gore or anything like that. But in that process, not only will this free up the Triforce in a very dark way for Ganondorf to take, it will also cut off Link's usage of whatever green energy this is tied to his arm. And with Link down for the count, then Ganondorf is primed to move in and take Zelda's spirit, along with the Triforce within her. We've seen that before in previous Zelda games as well, where Zelda's spirit has been either taken forcefully or have been expelled from her body. We've seen that in Twilight Princess, we've seen that in Spirit Tracks, we've seen that in Skyward Sword. And Ganondorf would have a multitude of reasons why to do this. One, it would give him access to the Triforce of Wisdom. Two, the fact that Zelda is the reincarnation of the goddess Hylia and is a problem for Ganondorf if she were to be still running around using sacred power and whatnot to try and seal him. And three, she is the reincarnation of the goddess Hylia, and maybe Nintendo could put a spin similarly how they did in Skyward Sword, where if Ganondorf were to take her soul, he will be able to access the full power and might of Demise that is slumbering within him. And with that, Ganondorf will have all three pieces of the Triforce with him, and he'll be primed and ready to conquer Hyrule in the most powerful state he has been in the entirety of the Legend of Zelda series. And I don't think you guys truly understand that if something like this were to play out, then Ganondorf would be nigh unstoppable. Not only would he have all of this power, but check it out. In The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and in the sequel, there will be no king. There will be no sages to support Link and Zelda or to seal him. There are no light spirits. There are no champions. There are no knights. There are no soldiers. There is no Hyrulean army. Ganondorf would have complete control over all three pieces of the Triforce. The Master Sword would be broken, Zelda would be lifeless, and Link would be armless. Imagine this is how Breath of the Wild 2 would end, on a dark and grim cliffhanger, setting up the events for The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 3 that would come 2 to 3 years after that game. Not only an ending like this will have people talking about the game for months and for years leading up to the hype extremely for the third game, but it will also break the conventions and traditions of Zelda while also setting up for something very particular when it comes to Link and concept art from the original Breath of the Wild, where to replace his lost arm, he could get an ancient Sheikah technology replacement, something that we did see in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild creating a champion's art. And this will make us wonder, how will Link defeat Ganondorf in this most powerful state? And it will give Nintendo and the Zelda team a lot of room to play around with when it comes to hidden lore, hidden abilities, and perhaps a long lost and dark forgotten history tied to Ganondorf, the Triforce, and the truth of the gods that maybe Link can use against Ganondorf. All in all, a trilogy based on Breath of the Wild I feel is not out of the question given the success of the first game, because usually when it comes to games, movies, TV shows, the first in the series is usually a test run to see if people like that product, to see if people really enjoy that product, and usually when the first does really well, like Breath of the Wild being the best-selling Zelda game in existence, you know they would try to replicate that kind of success. And why not 3 times over? So usually when a first in a series does really well, it usually acts and is intended as a standalone product, yet it's given some room just in case for a sequel. And then when a sequel is produced because the first in the series did really well, that installment usually sequel baits very hard, in a way that it sets up a definite sequel a third time around in order to make a whole trilogy basing off the success of the first installment. Sometimes that strategy works, and sometimes it definitely doesn't, but hey, this is Nintendo Switch, and The Legend of Zelda and Breath of the Wild that we're talking about. I believe in Nintendo EPD. So if they were to go this route, we're gonna have to think of some names for Breath of the Wild number 2 and Breath of the Wild number 3. And I've been sitting on this thought process for a little bit, where the first game obviously is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and the second game, the one we're waiting for right now, is The Legend of Zelda Return to the Wild. And if this thought process turns out to be true and we're gonna get a third game, then I feel it could be The Legend of Zelda End of the Wild, considering that at this point Ganondorf would be king, his monsters and Yiga tribe would be running amok, and that would be the end of the Wild as we know it, and Link will have to put a stop to that. But given the ideas I've been playing around with, I want to know what you guys think, considering that we might get a Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 3, and if we do, would you want it, and how would you want number 2 to set up number 3? And in any case, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got hyped for what could be. Leave what you thought in the comment section below, and while you're at it, please like, share, favorite, and most importantly, subscribe to HMK for more awesome Zelda content considering Breath of the Wild and its future. Once again, big thanks to my Patreon supporters for help making this video happen. If you want to find out how you can support HMK for just $1 a month, check out my Patreon. So guys, until the next video, I've been HMK, and I'll check you guys later.